This is your video for Accentuate the Negative Investigation 3. Notice that this one is going to cover 3.1 to 3.3. This will be your only instructional video put together by me. If you need some supporting videos, especially if you need some refreshers on how to multiply or divide with fractions or decimals, you will want to look at the links for 3.2 and 3.3 and look at the supporting videos that I have linked there, because at this point it is assumed that you have those skills, but it never hurts to do a refresher. So our learning target for this video is to multiply and divide with rational numbers, so that includes your integers, your fractions, your decimals, as well as to be able to determine without actually solving if your answer is going to be positive or negative when multiplying or dividing. To save some time on this video, please make sure that you have copied down the two vocab terms, multiplicative identity and multiplicative property of zero, and you can get that from the images that are on the site. So let's go straight to our algorithm. This is your algorithm, or the rules that you want to follow when multiplying and dividing. When multiplying and dividing with rational numbers, an odd number of negative signs will result in a negative answer. So if I have one negative number, your answer is going to be negative. If I have three negative numbers, your answer is going to be negative. If I have five negative numbers, your answer is going to be negative. Notice 1, 3, and 5, those are odd numbers, so my final answer is negative. On the reverse of that, when multiplying, dividing with rational numbers, an even number of negatives will result in a positive answer. So if I have two negative numbers, my answer is positive. 4 negative numbers, my answer is positive. 6 negative numbers, my answer is positive. So hopefully that gives you an idea. So let's take a look at some examples and determine if we are going to have a positive or a negative outcome. So 7 times negative 8 times negative 3. I see two negative signs. 2 is an even number. An even number results in a positive answer. So again, I'm not concerned with what that answer is. We're just trying to determine if it's positive or negative. My next one, negative 12 times negative 5 times negative 4. I see 3 negative signs. 3 is an odd number. Odd represents or results in a negative final answer. Let's look at the next one together. I see 1 negative sign. 1 is an odd number. Odd numbers result in negative answers. I want you to pause the video and I want you to do the next 3 on your own and see how you do. Alright, how did you do? The ones that I have highlighted in red, dark blue, and light blue were the ones that you needed to do. 2 red highlights results in 2 negative signs, an even number, so that's positive. The next one, 1 dark blue highlight, 1 negative is an odd number, so my answer is negative. Same as with the last one, I have 1 highlighted in light blue, 1 is odd, therefore my answer is negative. Let's move on to actually computing what the answer would be. So we want to evaluate now these expressions. So first thing that we want to determine is just to ask ourselves, is this answer going to be positive or negative? I see 2 negative signs. So that tells me that I know for a fact my final answer has to be a positive. So I'm just going to put a plus sign there to remind myself. Now we're going to go through and carry out the multiplication. A negative 2 times 4, if I split it up, well, that would give me one negative times a positive. So that's going to be negative 8. Then I'm going to look at these two. Negative 3 times 5, well, at that I'm just multiplying with one negative. So I have a negative 8 times a negative 15. You may, remember, there are no calculators allowed at this point, so you may need to go off to the side and do a little bit of multiplication if you need to, where you line them up. So I have 5 times 8, that gives me 40. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 gives me 12. So a negative times negative, that gives me positive, or this answer is a positive 120. Let's look at the next one. Once again, I see two negative signs. That means that my final answer is going to be positive. This is a division, so don't get thrown off by that. Here's a reminder. When dividing, you can temporarily ignore that decimal. So you are going to treat this as 45 divided by 9. That should be a fact that you know. 45 divided by 9 is 5. Then we have to put the decimal point back in. Once we put our decimal back in, we would have 0.5. Another way to see that is if we kind of go back to long division, where we have 4.5, or excuse me, negative 4.5 divided by a negative 9. The second number actually goes outside the house. 4.5 goes inside. Our decimal points go straight up into the answer, but because I can ignore it temporarily, 9 we know goes into 45 5 times, and then you can see where you get the 0.5 from. Again, if you need additional refreshers on dividing or even multiplying with decimals, make sure you check out the supporting videos on the other investigations. Alright, next one, 3/5 times a negative 4/9. I see that I have one negative. That tells me that my answer is going to be negative. With multiplying fractions, we can just simply multiply across. So 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 9 is 45. Now we need to ask whether this is in simplest form. This one is not. I know for a fact that I can divide both of those numbers by 3. If I do that, 12 divided by 3 is 4. 45 divided by 3 is 15. And then don't forget to carry through with that negative sign. So then you would need to, you always want to ask yourself, could you simplify a little bit more? There's nothing that goes evenly into 4 and 15. So negative 4/15 is my final answer. Let's look at the next one. 7/8 divided by 2 3/4. Both numbers are positive, so my final answer is going to be positive. Right here, when we are dealing with a mixed number, the easiest thing to do first is to convert that to an improper fraction. So I will have 7/8 divided by 11/4. Now many of you remember that division was changed to multiplication using the reciprocal. So 7 times 4 is 28. 8 times 11, 88. Now this one, you would need to simplify again. I'm going to start with 8. 28 divided by 8. Sorry, not 8, I'm thinking ahead. I'm going to start with 4. 28 divided by 4. That hopefully is a fact that many of you have memorized. That's 7. Then we have 88 divided by 4, which is going to give me 22. 7 and 22, nothing that divides evenly with both of those numbers. And again, my final answer was positive, so my final answer is a positive 7 over 22. The last one, two integers, a negative 35 divided by 7. I have one negative number, so my answer is going to be negative, and 35 divided by 7 is 5, so negative 5. All right, one comment I want to make a note about the placement of the negative sign. And this is more directly tied with fractions, but it is not uncommon for a negative sign, let's start with an integer, first of all, to potentially be placed in parentheses, just so that you can tell that it's a negative sign. With a fraction, your negative sign can be with the numerator. Your negative sign could be in the denominator, or your negative sign could be in line with that fraction bar. Each one of those examples indicates that that is a negative number. In your book, like with the example of the negative 4, you might also see where you have your integer and the negative sign is, is kind of high. I typically tend to write it more in the middle, but just as that negative sign, the location might fluctuate slightly, don't let that throw you off. It's still going to indicate a negative value. If you have any questions, make sure you come to class with them, and don't forget to check out some of those other supporting videos.